Welcome to Fine Tuning with Drew Taylor, your one-stop shop when it comes to animation news and commentary. I'm Drew's co-host, entertainment writer Jim Hill, and Mr. Shailen and I are recording this show on Wednesday, July 17th, 2019. So, Disneyland's birthday, Drew. I'm a little surprised you're home.
You know, it also coincides with what is mostly the most miserable time of the year here in Southern California. I think the hottest and sweatiest I've ever been was during the 60th when they encouraged people to come dressed in their 1955 finest a few years ago. Do you remember that?
Oh.
So I had a dress suit and a tie on, and I was sweating profusely. It was uncomfortable.
Okay, well, if it's any consolation, you're going to be down at San Diego Comic-Con, later this week, and I was just looking at the weather report for that, and I guess it's going to be a balmy 72 with a sea breeze, but that's outside, and you'll be trapped inside of that giant building.
That's right.
On the other hand, you were just at the, the long lead, or was this the full-on press junket for Abominable?
It was like a edit bay visit, sort of, but
okay,
yeah,
cool. All right, so again, it's Abominable Snowman. It must have been cool there.
It was cool.
Okay. Look, we have to cut to the chase here because in fact, you and I were pre-gaming this thing. Abominable, as cute as the teaser trailer was, it is in fact the third film. In fact, I think it's being released 1 year to the day that Small Feet hit theaters last year. So again, that was the Warner Brothers, take on the Abominable Snowman, and then we had Missing Link, Leica's take on the Bigfoot who wanted to meet his relatives, the Abominable Snowman, the Yeti. That was out in April of this year. So this had to have come up that they're the third through the door.
Yes, I brought it up actually.
Okay.
And they said that they weren't super concerned. I don't know if they looked at the numbers for the box office on those, but they just stressed how the movies are completely different, and they really are from what I saw of Abominable. But it just seems like that was just kind of in the ether at the time. Yeah, I guess there's not really anything they can do about it at this point. I also asked if they were worried about encouraging people to go to Mount Everest, given the recent. I mean, you've seen the photos of people like lined up to take selfies at Everest, and there were I think 10 people that died on the mountain and all that stuff. Yeah, so they were like, well, we can't do anything now. Although it was called Everest originally, which I'm sure you remember.
Yeah, true. In fact, well, that's what they call the Yeti in this film, right?
Yes,
Everest.
His name is Everest.
Okay,
or her name.
Okay,
who knows what it is? Yeah.
Okay, now you get to see basically 30 minutes of the film.
Yes,
right?
I did.
And, what's our take on it?
I wasn't super thrilled by that teaser, but the animation is really beautiful. It was a co-production with Pearl, which was formerly DreamWorks Oriental Studios in China. And the animation is really beautiful. The character designs are great. It's a really fun, like, travelogue type story. And the Yeti has these kind of magical powers that are really interesting. So I think that you'll enjoy it. The Yeti is so cute, too, that it was just, like, crazy how adorable he is, or she is.
Well, that's the thing. Based on the look of that character, I want a walk around of Everest in the Universal Parks now. I'm hoping, they do that. But at the same time, I mean, that again, given what Missing Link, at least according to my research, only did, like, again, the Leica stop motion, always beautiful work there. Chris Butler does great stuff, but they spent $100 million and only got 16.6 back at the box office domestically.
Yeah, it was a bomb.
Well, but the interesting thing is that I remember, I think you and I were talking about how it's an animated film basically for adults, and the whole notion of if I look at Abominable, this clearly, the trio of kids on this amazing adventure had, taking the Yeti back to Everest. It seems like, this is two very different takes on the material.
Yes. Yeah.
You
Yeah, and it's interesting the kind of concessions that they had to make for the Chinese, because it is a Chinese co-production, so the state has a say in things, and the reason why the kids are older is because that you have to legally be 16 to travel alone in China.
Oh.
And we saw a lot of concept art of her as a younger kid, and they just didn't want that to reflect, poorly on China. And the movie was at one time set in Shanghai, and then they had all these crazy specifications about what the city could look like and not look like. So then they made it just some kind of anonymous, like, metropolis, which is really interesting. I was actually worried that the magic stuff would get him in trouble because, that Chinese censors crack down really hard on anything, otherworldly. And they said that it was, quote unquote, good magic. And since it came from something based in nature, that they weren't gonna, wrap it on the knuckles, which I thought was very interesting. Because like every ghost story over there, like the last 5 minutes is like Scooby-Doo, and they explain, that it's something terrestrial that this has come from. But so I was really interested in that too.
Wow. Okay. Oh, before I forget here, we were touching on Missing Link. Missing Link, the Leica, the Blu-ray DVD version of that actually went on sale. Well, this show goes live on July 24th, so it went on sale yesterday, July 23rd, and well worth checking out. But again, I guess, well, look, we of course wish the best for Abominable, but again, when you look at this year, we've had 8 animated features, 7 animated features come out since February, and of the bunch, the only one that has even come close to meeting industry expectations is, of course, Toy Story 4. It's kind of interesting since our last show, when we talked a bit about whether or not, if you took into account adjusted ticket prices for inflation, Toy Story 4 wasn't doing quite as well as Toy Story 3, and it was interesting. I had a friend at the studio reach out who pushed back very hard on that. In fact, what was really kind of bizarre is that they cited the numbers of this past weekend and this past Monday to show how, Toy Story 4 and Toy Story 3 it's almost eerie how they're tracking one another at the box office. I mean, for example, this is the third weekend that Toy Story 4 is in a domestic release. It sold $20.9 million worth of tickets in North America. But if we jump back to July of 2020, same thing. Third weekend that Toy Story was in theaters, that Lee Anchorage movie sold $21 million worth of tickets. So literally they're, just a 1 percentage point apart. And basically the same thing for Monday's ticket sales, that the 25th day of Toy Story 3 being in release, it sold $2.79 million worth of tickets. This past Monday, again, Toy Story 4 is in its 25th day of domestic release, and it sold $2.8 million worth of tickets. So, as far as Disney is concerned, these two, it's right where it's supposed to be, because, again, they were hoping that they'd get a Toy Story 3 level success with this fourth film. And since that movie sold, $415 million worth of tickets in North America during its run at the box office, and Toy Story 4 currently sits at $349 million in North America, they're like, we're fine.
Right.
There's no reason, to fret about this. We're going to be fine, and we assume that this is going to be our next billion-dollar earner. And, but again, at the same time, like my friend cautioned me to the effect that, well, the numbers overseas aren't quite where we'd like them to be. But at the same time, in fact, I made sure to include this quote from what he said. But again, if you asked me in May if I thought Disney's live-action Aladdin would be the studio's next film to sell $1 billion worth of tickets, I'd said that's not what the research, our own internal box office projections are telling us. But that Guy Ritchie movie right now, Drew, is sitting at $962 million.
It's insane. It's insane.
Do you remember when they were hoping it would get to 800?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that anything over 400 was like a cherry on top. This is insane how much money this movie is making. Do you know one person who has seen it, let alone liked Aladdin? Besides me.
You keep asking me if I've seen it, and it's like, again, we keep making plans to go out and see it, but again, according to Disney's own projections at this point, if the trend holds, sometime in the first 10 days of August, this will join Disney's $1 billion club.
Wow.
And Drew, care to guess how many $1 billion earners Disney Studios has managed to produce and release?
I'm assuming a lot, more than any other studio.
Well, that's true. In fact, to date, there've been 19 of them. They actually started back in 2006 with Dead Man's Chest, and the year that Disney had their biggest run of $1 billion earners actually was 2016. That was the year Zootopia, Captain America: Civil War, Finding Dory, and Rogue One all blew past the $1 billion barrier. But this year, if you factor in, Captain Marvel and Avengers Endgame are already there. They've already got, and we've got Toy Story 4 and Aladdin now in release, and of course we've got Favreau's Lion King, and the conventional wisdom is that's going to do really well. So, remember, back in late April, early May, that's what they said about Dumbo. But, that's going to do really well. And Frozen 2 and Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. It's conceivable that Disney could have 7 films this year, that cross the $1 billion mark. And
that's insane.
That's insane. Now, okay, so back to Abominable. That's being released to theaters on September 27th. And it's only real competition at that point. We've got Angry Birds 2 coming out on August 14th, and that will probably be done and gone at that point. We then had Addams Family coming out about 2 weeks later on October 11th.
Yeah.
But
you're saying you're just saying family animated films, but there also is Maleficent in October, which I feel like could eat a lot of its lunch as well.
Yeah, that's true. And then from continuing through the rest of the year, we've got November 22nd, Frozen 2 and Playmobil. Did you see the Universal just sent out today that sort of behind the scenes thing on Cats?
Yep.
And okay, here we go. I mean, the weird thing is when they said they were doing a lot of motion capture and oversized sets and that sort of thing, I pictured, James Cameron style volume. Were you kind of surprised to see finished sets?
That they actually made them? Yeah, I was a little bit, because it looks interesting too, because there's a finished set and then there's a blue screen behind it. Mm-hmm. And I wonder how they're going to match up the mocap cats against that with the background. I mean, it's going to be a lot of work.
I agree.
But, I mean, I've never been a huge Cats fan. I know Memory is a great song, don't get me wrong, but I know you're really excited about Skimbleshanks the Railway Cat.
Well, I forget, who was it, the guy who did... I mean, the thing is that Andrew Lloyd Webber is kind of infamous for there's always one hit song.
Right.
Whatever
he does. If there's a hit song out of, what was the one about the Starlight Express had a hit song, for God's sakes.
Well, that was the show that people went home humming the skates. All right. It's like, wow, they skate. Nancy actually saw this. She was talking about going to, I think she saw it in London, the original production, and was talking about, the way the theater was set up, that at some points you actually, I think she had seats that were under the track that the people skated around on.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, again, she said it was it was a spectacle, but at the same time, do you remember a song? Well, it was a spectacle.
Right.
But yeah, this actually brings me to my favorite Letterman story. Did you ever see the first episode of when David moved the show to CBS?
I don't remember the first episode, but I remember those first few episodes.
Okay. Well, they because remember they moved into the old Ed Sullivan Theater, and so at one point the show is going on and there's a disturbance in the audience, and the camera pans, and there's Paul Newman sitting in the audience, and he's, sir, is there a, Dave from the stage, sir, is there a problem? And Newman stands up. It's like, yeah, where the hell are the singing cats? And it's like, oh, I'm so sorry. You're in the wrong theater. You have to go down to the Winter Garden. Oh, all right. And he just gets up and leaves.
That's amazing.
So now, that come December the 20th, where the hell are the singing cats? The answer to that question will be in every multiplex in the United States. So,
well, if it's half as good as Tom Hooper's Les Mis, it's gonna be really awful.
Oh, okay. Wow. But you got to give them points for the fact that the Really For Real trailer is going out in theaters with Lion King.
Yes, I mean, it will be online on Thursday night. So,
okay, all right.
I mean, it'll be already online by the time people hear this, but for you, it's on Thursday night. Yeah.
But yes, then we'll chat about that on our next show. And speaking of the Lion King, when you were down doing the junket, you actually got to talk with Hans Zimmer.
Yes.
And listen to this before we get started here, folks. And Mr. Zimmer has some very interesting stories about his second trip to the Pride Lands.
Yes.
Which we'll get to in a moment.
This episode is brought to you by Battlefield 6. Battlefield 6 is the ultimate all-out warfare experience. Rip through the skies in aerial dogfights. Demolish your surroundings for a strategic advantage. Harness complete control over every action and movement using the kinesthetic combat system. Drop into multiplayer with your squad, or fight furiously as a member of the Dagger 1-3 squad in a gritty, adrenaline-fueled single-player campaign where you'll defend a world on the edge of collapse.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Carvana lets you buy your next car on your terms. Explore a massive inventory online, filter for what matters, and find your perfect match. Then choose delivery to your home or pick it up at one of Carvana's iconic car vending machines. Every car also comes with a 7-day money-back guarantee, so you can make sure it's the right fit. Buy your car on Carvana. Delivery or pickup fees may apply. Limitations and exclusions may apply. See our 7-day return policy at Carvana.com.
Carvana.
Okay, we're back. All right. As I said at the top of the show, we're recording this on July 17th, 2019, and I already gave Drew crap about not being at Disneyland for the 64th birthday, but...
you know who else is not at Disneyland, Jim?
Who is not at...
Anyone else, it seems like.
Okay. Dan and I actually talked about this on looking at Lucasfilm. Me personally, I think... there was so much bad, unintentional messaging in regard to, the weird thing is you had all of this hype about, oh my God, it's going to be like you stepped into a Star Wars movie. You're going to be able to drink blue milk. You're going to be able to go to a canteen. You're going to be able to fly the Millennium Falcon. But even as they're doing that, there are all these messages about, by the way, we're restricting the size of strollers that can come into Disneyland because we're worried about, crowds, and we're widening sidewalks. We're getting rid of planters that have been in the park since '55 because we're worried about crowds. And, just this endless drumbeat of, hey, we just built a second giant parking garage because there are so many people coming to this thing. And seriously, Drew, Sunday afternoon, I take Nancy down to Massachusetts to have dinner with a couple of her friends. And, as they're picking her up, I mentioned that I'm got to get back to work on this podcast. And about Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, and this friend of Nancy, Diane, is lives in Massachusetts, 3,000 miles away from Anaheim, and without any prompting at all, goes, "Oh yeah, that new land that Disney opened up that's so crowded that people can't get in," and it's like, I honestly think at this point there are going to be people who study how the Anaheim version of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge got launched, as a way not to message, the opening of a brand new park, because it's just, it's going to be crowded things so overwhelmed, it's going to be cool that,
Right.
they ended up with the summer that they just got. And speaking of space-related stuff, of course, this week is also the 50th anniversary of, when man first walked on the moon. And I don't know if you saw the thing that Apple just put out. We talked earlier this year about how they got the rights to do new animated stuff for the Peanuts characters. But they put out a teaser for a thing that'll be released this fall called Snoopy in Space.
Oh wow!
So,
did you see that in relation to that apparently Charles Schultz did sort of like safety posters for NASA back in the day, and Mondo is reissuing those posters.
Oh, no.
At Comic-Con. They're really, really cool. It's stuff like, be sure to wash your hands and things like that they put up in the lab that they're going to release commercially, which is pretty neat.
That is cool. Speaking of things to check out and chase down at Comic-Con this year, when you're on the show floor, you have to go check out the what is it? The Nick's building an 1,800 square foot booth that's supposed to be Bikini Bottom.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Well, but that's supposedly tied to, again, we talked on the previous show, SpongeBob big birthday blowout, which is tied to the 20th anniversary of the character debuting on television. But just today, before we started recording here, Drew, they announced SpongeBob has been renewed for a 13th season on Nick, and appropriately enough, they're going to do 13 episodes.
Wow.
And while I'm nagging you, I've been after you for a while now to watch, BoJack Horseman. And I don't know if you saw just yesterday that when the Primetime Emmy nominations came down, that got selected for Outstanding Animated Program.
Okay.
All right.
No, I didn't see that, but I'm excited for it. I was looking for the animated nominees, and they don't put them out in the big press release.
No, they don't. They don't. You really do have to sort of beat the bushes there. But yeah, two Netflix shows got nominated: BoJack and Big Mouth. Likewise, two Fox shows: Simpsons and Bob's Burgers, and finally one Cartoon Network show, which of course you'll approve of, Adventure Time. So
for the final episode, which was so good.
Yeah, I agree. The other thing, and I know we've talked about this previously, but just yesterday we finally got a date for when that Nick and Netflix Rocco's Modern Life show is finally going to be available for streaming. And
finally.
And that is Friday, August 9th.
Did you see the poster called it a Netflix original film, but it's only 45 minutes long?
Well, Dumbo's only 64 minutes long. So
that's true. That's true.
So, or at least the original, as opposed to the Tim Burton, which, what is that? It's 25 hours, just...
Yes.
There we go.
It's a marathon.
There we go. Okay, so speaking of movies, it brings us to Hans Zimmer, who... I gotta say, I love this guy's career. It is so crazy.
Yeah, I mean, he's had a long one, and he started out in pop music, right?
Well, yeah, that's it. In fact, I'm fascinated by the fact that he supposedly could be seen in the 1979 music video for "Video Killed the Radio Star," which wasn't that the very first thing they played on MTV?
Yeah, that was the very first music video, supposedly.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm gonna have to look this up after we record.
But yeah, I mean, he sort of slid in slowly. I mean, again, he was sort of a working rock musician, and sort of backed into a career. I mean, he He worked on the score for Beautiful Laundrette in 1985. He produced the score for 1987, but for 1987's The Last Emperor. But his first full-fledged film score was for Rayman, the 1988 Barry Levinson film, and then from there it just got kind of interesting. He does Driving Miss Daisy in 1989, which of course wins all those Academy Awards and is, sort of puts him in the spotlight. And then the very next year, he does both Thelma and Louise. He does Thelma and Louise in 1991, and then A League of Their Own the following year. And then in 1994, here comes The Lion King.
Right.
And, again, you got him to admit some very interesting things. I mean, I love the whole notion of one of the things that kind of drove him to do this was that at the time he had a 6-year-old daughter. And, that he wanted to have a movie that he could take, his daughter to. But at the same time, and I love that this impacted how he worked on the score, but you got him to talk about him losing his own dad at 6.
Right. And he connected very much to the Lion King story.
Well, tell you what, we'll don't want to spoil too much of it, but for me, I guess what's intriguing about Zimmer is if you look at his career, in a weird sort of way, he bonds with individual directors or filmmakers. I mean, think about all the stuff he's made for Jerry Bruckheimer. I mean, he started with Crimson Tide in 1995, did The Rock the following year, and then Pearl Harbor, and and of course all the Pirates of the Caribbean movies except the last one, Dead Men Tell No Tales. And
I think there was some kind of falling out with him at some point, but I'm not really sure what happened.
And then conversely, when you look at all the work he did for DreamWorks Animation, I mean, starting with Prince of Egypt, and then there's this like 10-year run where he does all the Kung Fu Panda movies, or the first 2 Kung Fu Pandas movies. He does the first 2 Madagascars, Megamind. He's Shark Tale, and in fact, and what's weird is that when Gore Verbinski went to do Rango, he reached out for him as well, and then followed up that animated Western with bringing him in to do Lone Ranger, which
after Jack White dropped out, we have to remember.
Really?
Do you remember that?
Oh God!
Yeah,
that's right. You
can hear a little bit of Jack's music in the Hell on Wheels scene when they walk into the kind of bacchanal, but that's the only Jack White music that remains. But I love his score for Rango and Lone Ranger. I think they're both really terrific.
Mm-hmm. And what are the point? The fact that he talks about why he went over to DreamWorks to do all these films. We'll tell you what. Let's just jump into the audio and let folks hear that stuff.
So let's talk about the original movie first, because from what I understand, the songs were written pretty quickly, and you gave them sort of the scope that they ended up.
Well, I don't ever really know the complete history.
Okay.
But I don't think I was the first call, right?
Okay.
I think a few people had a go at it.
At the score
or
at
the songs?
Okay, at the songs. Okay.
And then they got the idiot in who didn't know how to write a musical. And I kept saying, I don't want to write a musical. And I just had this idea that it should start with this African voice. Mm-hmm. And that it should be very atypical to a Disney movie.
Right.
And I said there was I'm such an Elton fan.
Right.
So I could either be terrified and try to absolutely slavishly copy what he was doing, or just try to sort of make it my own. And the brief was, go and make these Western songs into African, right? So I remember getting it completely wrong. They had said to me, we want 30 seconds of Circle of Life, then it's a dialogue scene. Then I started off with the Lego thing, and then I did the whole song, and the second chorus is different than the first because I had another idea, and it's like endless.
Yeah.
It's got not, Don Hahn and the directors Roger Ellis and Rob Minkoff came in. I played them this thing, and as I'm playing it to them, I'm going, shit, they asked me for 30 seconds and then dialogue scene. And here's this, I don't know what it is, 4 minutes with the big drum hit at the end, which is only there because they were coming in and I didn't have time to do anything else. So it's a total accident, right?
Really?
And then they went off and huddled in a corner and they were talking, and I thought they were basically talking about how they're going to fire me. And so I sort of walked over to them and said, look, if I remember it's supposed to be 30 seconds and then get quiet and underscore on dialogue scene. I can do that. And they go, no, we're not talking about that. We're talking about how we're going to change the whole movie, the scene.
Yeah.
We're going to take all that dialogue out because this works great.
Yeah.
So I was sort of unleashed at that moment,
right?
If you see what I mean.
Yeah, but did you feel like now you're really making a contribution to this movie that you didn't even know how to
No,
sort
I
of
wasn't.
approach?
I wasn't. The other thing is, I'm telling you all the truth. The truth that never was revealed.
Right.
I never saw a script.
Uh-huh.
So it was just a room about roughly this size with storyboards.
Yeah.
And they were still making things up as they went.
Mm-hmm.
And Rob and Roger would sort of would stick, point at the storyboard and try to tell me the story. They'd get stuck at a certain place where they would start arguing amongst themselves about which way the story was going to go.
Right.
And I'd just be sitting there and waiting for them to finish the argument, and we never got to the end of the movie.
Right. Well, you never did another Disney animated movie. You did Prince of Egypt.
No, it wasn't Disney.
Which was DreamWorks, right? But you never came back to Disney until...
Well, I wasn't asked.
Was there something that happened?
Jeffrey Katzenberg left, and I thought he was interesting, and I started working with him. And you can't. It's only fair. You
right.
can't go and
That's interesting.
Yeah. Did you hear any?
Yeah. Okay.
And that's what happened.
Okay. But obviously.
Plus, it was like such a weirdly individual movie.
Yes.
And it was so about... I was the one who was saying no all the time.
Yeah.
I don't want to do this movie. I'll do this movie, but I don't like musicals, right? And them saying, we promise you it will never turn into a Broadway musical.
Right.
Right?
Cut
to, right? Exactly. So it was all like this.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do it because I want to take my daughter, who is 6 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I want to show off as a dad. I'll be honest about it. That's
right.
why I'm doing it. Next thing I know, I'm confronted with the death of a father. My dad died when I was 6 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm her age, and I've tucked all these dark memories away, and now suddenly I need to go and open those dark places up, because how else am I going to write?
Right. Well,
so that actually was relatively heavy.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah.
But you don't want to do it. You don't want to do it. You do it. It's a massive hit. They come back to you now to do this. Was there?
No. But massive hit. Okay, let me tell you a story.
Give me a story.
Right. Oscars. Win an Oscar. Have a fabulous night. Go out.
You call Hugh Grant fluffy. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Did he give you shit?
I never watched the Oscars.
Okay, I watched it last night.
All
I
know is I got off that stage so fast that they couldn't even play the get off the stage music.
Yeah.
Was partied all night. 10 o'clock, I'm having a meeting with Tony Scott and Jerry Bruckheimer and Don Simpson on Crimson Tide.
Mm-hmm.
I just won an Oscar. They don't even mention it. I play them the first piece I'd written. They go, it's completely wrong. And it was like, poof, back to reality.
Right.
And that was good.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There's nothing more pretentious than somebody going, I just won an Oscar.
Yeah.
It's like, I didn't even get to say that sentence with those guys. It's like, roll up your sleeve. Why are you late? Let's get to work.
Well, was there any trepidation for you coming back to this? Was there, or was it just sort of like, if they're doing it, I want to be a part of it?
There was a bit, There was a bit, but there was a sense of ownership as
Right.
well. You know,
That's what Alan
it's
Menken told me when I talked to him about Aladdin. He
Right.
says if they're doing it, I've got to be
Yeah,
there.
yeah. No, it's like, plus, I know this sounds really crazy, but there were always bits in it which bugged me a little, which I thought I could have done better.
Uh-huh.
You know, so who gets a chance to redo? You know,
Yeah.
Nobody in the world ever complained about these bits.
Right.
You know, plus I had this sort of weird experience where you know, my musician friends kicked me out of the studio going, there comes a point in every film composer's life where you have to actually look the audience in the eye and stop hiding in your dark room and hiding behind a screen. And out of one reason or the other, I ended up playing Lion King at Coachella, which I thought was totally inappropriate.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
Until I played it, and I'm going, whoa, look at this.
Yeah.
All these people are, you know, their feelings, you know, there's an honesty in the emotion. It's not sentiment.
So we're back, and again, I just love that he followed Jeffrey Katzenberg over to DreamWorks because he thought Jeffrey was interesting.
Yeah. I was more interested in the fact that he was like, well, Disney never called me to do another one.
Yeah.
Which is just, it's fascinating given how much of a cultural and commercial success The Lion King was.
I totally agree, but at the same time, I love his attitude that one of the reasons he said yes to working with Favreau on the live action one is that, you know, he wanted to go back and fix the mistakes that he'd made with the animated one. That it's like, oh, you know, how many times does an artist get the chance to go back and do that sort of thing?
Yeah.
But wow, I have to admit, when you got him to talk about the Coachella thing, I actually went and chased that down. Have you seen the video of that?
Yeah, I think that I haven't seen it, but I think you can actually buy like a DVD or a CD of that live recording of his last tour, or the tour. Is he currently on tour with this thing too?
Okay, the World of Hans Zimmer, a symphonic celebration, toured North America last year. In fact, my friend Gary Scheingold got tickets for himself and his wife as an anniversary present, and said it was one of his favorite nights of all time. You know, in a symphony hall. I mean, he played everything. It was, you know, just this amazing, and to sit there and watch him direct this full orchestra doing this. But yeah, this actually starts up. The tour starts up again in Hong Kong in late September, and then proceeds to Australia in October, and I think it's headed to Belgium and Germany after that. But yeah, it's just I you know, again, to watch this guy work, and more to the point, what's interesting is he brings a number of the musicians who, you know, for example, I'm blanking the gentleman who worked on the score for the Pirates movie, but he was like, you know, I need the ocarina. You have to come with me. So, but on the other hand, you know, and again, to show you how small this world actually is, and of course, one of the projects that Mr. Zimmer worked on is a Mission Impossible movie. Mission Impossible 2, is that right? Or?
Yeah, released the same year as his hugely influential score for Gladiator. And you can actually hear some kind of carryover between the scores. So I hope to have him on Light the Fuse one day. But, you know.
Well, speaking of Light the Fuse, what do we have coming up?
We're still in the middle of our music month, so we're going through each movie musically one by one with clips from the movies and stuff like that. So that should be fun, and we have some good episodes coming up for August too. So just keep listening.
Very cool. Okay. Well, on my side of the fence, the usual pile of crud folks. We've got Disney Dish with Len Testa. We've got Looking at Lucasfilm with Dan Zayer. We've also got Universal Joint with Dustin Fuse. In fact, as soon as I finish up with this one, I got to pivot and get back to work on I Want That with Michelle Valladolid. We're trying to, in fact, the very same thing you're dealing with, Drew. You know, all the stories coming out of Comic-Con is, of course, all the merch that, you know, gets introduced there. So, you know, we'll be talking that up in the next show. And then, of course, we have the Marvelous Disney podcast with the amazing Aaron Adams. Tell you what, folks, if you like what Drew and I do, if you could do us a favor, head on over to iTunes and rate and recommend our shows. If you really, really, really like what we do here, if you could subscribe to Bandcamp, that helps keep the lights on. And I guess that's it, Drew. So, you gotta pivot and start packing for San Diego, right? Or...
Yeah, I mean, I'm only there a couple days. I'm kind of making a strategic hit.
Okay.
This year.
Ninja-ing in, ninja-ing out, or...
Yes, I'm going in on Friday, and I'll be back. I'll be leaving on Sunday morning.
Wow. Okay. All right. I have to admit, when it comes to San Diego Comic-Con, I try to do it every other year. In fact, ideally what I do is, I'll do the D23 Expo one year and then Comic-Con the next year. Because otherwise, the one year I did them both, it was, you just... I think the phrase was lose the will to live.
Yeah, it's pretty exhausting.
So, well, all right. Well, anyway, here's hoping you have a great time down there and that you'll come back with all sorts of fun animated related stories. And
I will.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about those in the next show. So until then, folks, thanks for listening and take care.